You.
I am wondering, what do you think about journalists and media?
Okay, well, let's take the film here, okay? We'll save that
Well,
for later.
there are a bunch of journalism students in the room too. I'm one of them. I'm just wondering, do you see similarities between journalism and film, and are there good points and bad points about each? What is your opinion?
Well, we need journalists. They are the first draft. But they are by no means the best draft. They often mislead us, but they often do give us information. It's hard. You're on the front line, and you're controlled by an editor in America generally, as you are most of the world. Your stuff gets chopped up. You see things, and you can't express it except in a book or something original. So journalists have a tough time. What I don't like about the journalist mentality and the media is the herd mentality, the vigilante mentality, this Oxbow incident thing where they just keep hanging people, hanging them out to dry, and they don't even bother to clean up the mess, they don't even bother to verify. Often there's a second story that breaks a week later, a few days later, and it doesn't get any play. It's always the first accusation. And that's a lynch mob, and that's what I despise about most media. Because it's so shallow and it's so hysterical. And certainly they don't like us. They come after us quite a bit but we do spend more time on it. We are dramatists. We do go 5, 10, 20 years later to that story, and where we look into the depths of it. Kennedy, for example, was 30 years after the fact. And I did get into a lot of hot water because I said the journalists on that day were asleep. And they never forgave me for that statement, very simple like that. So, but the dramatist has the advantage of time, research, eyewitnesses, a lot of research. I took the benefit of 20 years of private citizens with no money who just did it on their own because they cared about that story. And actually, Jim Garrison's the only public official in the United States who did anything about it. So I had the benefit of that time. The journalist doesn't. The journalist has got to rush out there, and he's in a cutthroat world. So we need each other, and we should respect each other. Yes, ma'am, I kept you waiting.
That's fine. I'm just looking at when you spend all this time setting up shots and getting that information, and then you're going for the final project together. How do you kind of get to the point where does it start to not bother you so much and you can't, when stuff doesn't make sense to include it, and stuff?
When do you get to the point where what?
Where you don't bring back cutting stuff and losing this information.
How do you start losing what?
When you're editing stories.
Yeah. And how do you omit it? How do you lose and omit? You're interested in the subtraction process.
Well, sometimes that's necessary, isn't it?
Absolutely. You're brilliant. It's a brilliant concept, and it's true. I often think that writing is expansion because you have to write free, and then you go through the writing phase where you reduce because now you got to get it made. It has to be commercial. It has to sell. And then it has to be ready for the third version would be more the shooting script, where you have to go back more towards the actors and the director and the camera, because you have been financed. So ideally there are 3 phases to the writing. In the production side of it, as a director, it's in my interest to expand again and get the most options that I can in the limited amount of time and budget that I have. So I work for expansion. I want more. And then in the editing, I have to drop back into a place where I have to reduce. I have to say, we took this huge thing. What is the essence of that huge thing in a smaller, how can I tell it in a microcosm, but say the same thing that I want it to say? So editing is more like the phase of writing, where you're withdrawing, you're retreating, you're setting your parameters tighter. But unless you have gone out and reached, you won't have much perimeter. You won't have much perimeter at the end of the day. If you reach small, well, that's not been my failing. That's my way of doing it. Does that answer it? That's all we can do. Yes, sir, Mr. Hi, Mom.
I was wondering, in respect to your whole film experience, is there any one movie that sticks out as being the most rewarding for you?
That's the one what?
Sticks out as being the most rewarding writing a favorite movie.
No, really, everyone's a phase. I mean, there are some more ambitious. I remember vividly areas of my life, years when things were insane. But every movie is a tremendous effort of energy. Everyone for me has been the real thing. I've never done a movie for hire or for money. I've always felt it from love.
Why do you know what a movie you've seen? A movie that's inspired you?
So I really wouldn't be, I mean, some have turned out better than others, but, it's just not fair. Because you single out what, I don't like this judgment. I don't like judgment that much. It's not one of my favorite things. I had to grow up with a lot of it. Who's been wet hand for a long time? He's the blue shirt. Okay. Mr. Four Eyes.
Your style has changed a lot over the years from the broad kind of almost Hollywood style of Platoon or Fourth of July with that more widescreen, changing to the changing film stocks of Natural Born Killers and Nixon, and then to the quick cutting style of Any Given Sunday. Do you have any comment on your changing style of your career?
No, I'm proud of that. It's a fun ride. It's changed. I'm not repeating myself. I don't feel like that. Everyone's fresh. Every time it's fresh. I would just add that, the Fourth of July was a big breakthrough for us because it was anamorphic. It was our first film in anamorphic, I believe. But no one had ever used such a wild camera before. We were swinging handheld with it in ways that I'd never done before. Fourth of July was one of the roughest anamorphic looks, and free that way. I was very proud of that. By the time we hit the doors, we were really on a roll because digital started to come in. We were playing with that, and we were doing all kinds of crazy stuff on the doors. It's an insane-looking movie. But then we hit a new peak with JFK because that style has never been. That was a first. I mean, it's just the first in terms of editing alone, but just Richardson on the stocks and the looks. To me, it was a landmark for me. And then we kept going miraculously. We went, while we're doing a very classical, conventional film, classically shot film in Heaven and Earth in Vietnam to emphasize the beauty and color compared to American contrast colors. We went back to do Natural Born Killers, so we were operating on two antipodes completely at the same time. It was quite a heady time. And Natural Born Killers was the longest edit of all. It was almost 10 months. And we had, I think we made a record, I don't know, it must have been 3,000 shots in that movie. But it was not done gratuitously. The edit was long because we really cared about where the shots were. And it really worked. I went back to a much simpler style of Trade Center, and we'll talk about that tonight.